Everybody, this is Perch. Some people have asked me what I think about the new Punisher series. This is Jason Aaron redefining the Punisher. They're talking about how this is the equivalent of a Punisher Year One. I think is kind of the phrase that keeps getting used, and I hate that as a phrase. I just hate that as a gimmick. I always think that or there's like this is Punisher's Born Again. And to me, it always feels like what they're doing there is saying, "Hey, here's a popular comic you might remember. I want my comic to be as popular as that comic. So please buy it because I'm going to call it the same as that comic over there." Same kind of gimmick when people like this generation's Watchmen. This storyline in Deadpool is the V for Vendetta for Deadpool. Like, what are you even talking about? You're just sewing words together at that point. But this is. This what do I think about Punisher? So I've read it. I feel like first off, I think the initial reviews or the people who are commenting on the Punisher before they actually read the comic with the goofy hand inspired skull, and he's using swords now instead of guns or whatever. I think that was it was premature. Like a lot of things, I think a lot of the criticism came in. It wasn't accurate. It I don't think that did anybody any favors, mostly the people who are criticizing it, because they didn't nail what was actually going on with the comic or any of that. So I think a lot of that criticism was unfair and it was incorrect, and it just kind of dumb, wound up being kind of dumb criticism. Now, people always take umbrage to that. Of course, you can criticize whatever you want. And no, it doesn't mean people who criticize things are dumb. It just means ideally that criticism should be informed. Meaning, if you're going to complain about something, you should actually be right about what you're complaining, or at least, it should be subjective rather than factual. I think the people who are complaining with the Batman the Night, and I haven't circled back to it because honestly, I just haven't gotten the energy up to care. But this idea of like they're turning Batman gay. Well, if you actually read the comic and you've been reading Batman the Night, it's very clear what's going on in that panel. And Batman's basically, manipulating and conning the guy who's coming on to him. The guy who's coming on to him is a bit of a lech and is, trying to make him kind of uncomfortable. And Batman pulls one over on him by basically letting him get close and pickpocketing or stealing the thing that the guy thought he had and winning the contest. No, he is not bi-curious. I mean, you have to be really, really reaching to see that Batman is bi-curious. I think that it's clear what that scene is trying to communicate, unless you're an incredibly unethical and slimy news reporter for Bleeding Cool. You would not run with that story of Batman pulled somebody in close, got the drive, and basically let him go, which is more or less what happened in that scene. And yet people are going to hold on to that DC made Batman gay because this is, by the way, I'm sorry, we're going to get back to Punisher, but this is always what irks me, is a lot of the people who do the outrage videos, they know, because they've also commented on what a piece of shit Bleeding Cool is, how it traffics in rumors and garbage and nonsense, and the people involved are terrible, awful people. Okay? Lots of agreement on that topic. And yet, when Bleeding Cool does put out one of these incredibly misleading BS kind of stories, everybody jumps for it. Everybody's like, well, I mean, it's true. Batman's bisexual because Bleeding Cool said so. Look, this guy is a slimeball. Why are you using him as a respected news source? I'm completely confused. So many of the dodgy garbage stories that people have gotten really worked up about, really outraged about, have come from that site. And then when years later they turn out to be obviously stupid and false, it's not the Bleeding Cool people who look dumb. It's the people who go on outrage benders about what Bleeding Cool said. I mean, just stop using Bleeding Cool as your news source, and you'll save yourself a hell of a lot of pain and grief. Anyway, the Punisher. Why I went down that path, because the initial outrage about the Punisher and what he was up to turned out to be kind of incorrect. And the storyline idea was basically the Hand went to the Punisher and said, hey, look, we have a way of basically resurrecting your wife. We've done that. Now you can be reunited with your family. And, as a result, you're going to work for us. And he's kind of selling his soul in order to get his family back. And you kind of get a sense in some of the more recent issues that, they're holding the kids still over his head, that they've brought back the wife, but they're not going to bring back the kids until he's really sure, that he's then he's going to be in for it. And so there's some so there may be a little bit of the Punisher's playing him long enough to get the kids back, and then it's going to turn on him. There's just a bunch of aspects of this story that okay, you could say it's a reasonable story. However, and big however now, I don't. The comic is not good. It's not good for other reasons. The other reasons being this is a dead end story for Frank, because if the Punisher, whether you liked him or you didn't like him, one of the core aspects about that character was that he believed in his principles. His principles just happened to be that the best way to solve crime is to just murder it, and that was his deal. That's what created such great conflicts with Spider-Man and Daredevil, who believed in a different type of heroism, and it was the this core aspect of the character is an important part of his character. And if now you're willing to do a comic, and unfortunately they've made multiple mistakes here, they're doing a comic now where the Punisher is willing to sacrifice those ideals and that principle in order to get his wife back, it kind of breaks the character to a large extent, which I think it has done. The other thing is that they've gone down the track of saying, well, the Punisher was like a crazy psychopath as a kid, which is a horrible addition. And again, it doesn't fit who the Punisher is. You have to believe that the Punisher was just a crazy psychopath of a kid who then later would go and be a highly decorated, kind of by the book military, member of the military. And it's a bit of a destruction over what that character was all about. I think it's quite negative what they've done. And so I think that's breaking the character. We talk about what does it mean to actually break a character. I think you're seeing it right now in real time with the Punisher. The issue is not that the Hand would offer him a deal he can't refuse, and the Punisher would have to figure out a way to try and get his family back, but not lose himself in the process and all the rest. That's a story you could have told back in the 80s, back in the 90s. I mean, that's something that fits with some of the dilemmas and dynamics that the Punisher has gotten himself into. The idea that you're going to also reveal that he was a child psychopath, and that he's it just that he's willing to trade his principles in with this. I think that does damage to this character. Now you can maybe argue this is what Marvel wants to do anyway, because they don't like the Punisher. He's inconvenient, and so they want to wreck the character to the point that people will stop wearing the T-shirt around, and then Marvel can wash their hands of it because some police officer somewhere decided to put the Punisher logo on their car. Something that, again, I've always disliked. As I mentioned before, I don't want to see the Punisher driving around police walking around with any logos on their car, other than the city that they're the police for. I think if you put, I would have the same objection if the police had a rainbow flag on the car, or one of the Care Bears on their car, or a Decepticon logo, or the Punisher. The cop car should be pretty much just, it is what it is, police car. But that's neither here nor there. Look, I think that this story breaks the character of Frank, and I think that as a result, it's one of those things where when all is said and done, there's damage that gets done to the character. It's going to have to be retconned or rehabbed out. The most damaging thing to me is the revealing that he was a child psychopath who would murder things for fun. That doesn't fit the Punisher's character. It twists a lot of what he's all about. And in many cases, it makes Frank into kind of the villains that he chases around. And I get the old trope of, well, if things had just gone a slightly different way, the Punisher might have been Jigsaw, and he would have been the villain, and the heroes would have been chasing him down. But that's the thin gray line that all that stuff's crap. I don't think this is a healthy story because, again, it feels cheap. There's a bunch of things like the kid psychopath business that I think feels cheap. The other one is like they have the Punisher meet the Beast or the Demon, that is the demon that kind of oversees the Hand, the Beast, not the Beast, the X-Men Beast, but the other, the Beast of the Hand. And the Punisher's like all flat, like, oh my God, I didn't expect this. It's like, you fought Ghost Rider. You've been to hell. Like, you've been Frankenstein at one point. You've gone into space. Like, what do you mean you don't expect this? That's just absurd. Anyway, a bunch of things like that. But no, as Spiel said, what do you think of the series now it's rolled out? Like I said, I think the original outrage for it was outrage over the wrong things. But in the end, I think it's a pretty damaging story and ultimately not a good one. But that's my opinion. What do you think? Are you reading it? Do you like it? How do you feel about it so far? What's your take on the story? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.